And a very good Monday afternoon to you. Back on the rundown, David Meridian joined by Hazi Richardson and Ethan Gleich. Hazi of the Daily Wildcat. He's been with us recently, and we've only got one place to start, right? The sky is falling. What was once up is down. Down is up. Backwards is forward. What are we going to do? My hair is falling out. I can't stand up in the morning. Arizona won their first 23. They've lost their last two. They went from undefeated to a winless week with losses against Kansas and then on Saturday on their home floor against Texas Tech. The concerning thing about Kansas, Hazi, is they turned around. They got their one player back who didn't play on Monday, and they kind of got their rear ends handed to them on Saturday on the road against Iowa State. It wasn't particularly close. And if you're sitting there as an Arizona fan Saturday morning or Saturday early afternoon, you're like, oh boy, we just lost to them. They look horrible. What does that mean? And the dots probably should have been connected because Arizona turned around and did something that they've only done about 7 times since Tommy Lloyd has been the head coach, and that's lose at home. So I have thoughts. I'm sure I'll get to them and more. I want to start with what you saw, Hazi. I know you were in your writing capacities, analyzing the game and all that. So I know exactly how I feel. I'm not going to be swayed by what you have to say, and we know Ethan's over there. Pom-poms out. He's celebrating the fact that they lost because he gets to be right. So let's go Hazi first, and then I'll respond, and then we'll let Ethan take his victory lap.
So first, when it comes to the Texas Tech game, point blank, some of it you could blame on Koa being out, because the fact of the matter is Koa's presence, even if he only had 2 points, still requires you to put 2 bodies in the paint. You can blame it on that, but some of it is just, and I saw this in BYU, I saw this against Kansas, and it's concerning me now.
Which is?
We don't finish.
Yeah.
We are not very good at finish or closing these games out, because to me, Tech, I feel like we had it late, because we were up, 5 or 4 before up 6,
yeah,
and then all of a sudden we're down 2.
Yep.
So we got to close out these games. But I don't know if it's composure, it's Barry's just being. We can attribute it to him being a freshman.
Yeah.
We can attribute it to a lot of things. Fact of the matter is we got to close out these games.
Well, the interesting thing, Hazi, and some people say, well, they haven't been tested. That was a theme I heard on College Game Day, right? They haven't been tested before. They haven't been in these situations. And I'm sitting there like, are we just going to pretend that they didn't go into UConn? And that was a 4-point game. They didn't beat UConn by 20. That's a test. That was a close game, and they were strong then. It to me, it's not that they haven't been tested. Recently, the results have changed a little bit. I think there's a little bit of tape out there now that maybe wasn't in November. So I think the more appropriate statement, Hazi, would be they haven't been tested since the beginning of the season. Now that there's that data out there, that's a little bit closer to the truth. I'll let you finish your point.
And then and maybe this is considered a hot take.
Yeah.
I think they got comfortable.
In the game again on Saturday?
Not even just the game on Saturday. I think in general. I think we got comfortable, and especially because we started playing the Big 12 teams.
I don't agree with that, but I'll let you keep going.
And again, that's only my and it's a very hot take. Because
I think the better phrase would just be it's a bad take, but you can call it a hot take if you'd like.
But and my reasoning for saying that is just because. And again, it goes back to the finishing. Because even in BYU, some of it you can blame on the refereeing. But fact of the matter is BYU had the ball left in a 1-point game with 8 seconds
they almost
left.
blew that game, too. You're absolutely right.
They almost blow it. Kansas, we were up 11. And we somehow don't win that game.
Yeah.
Tech, we were up 6. Mm-hmm. We give up a couple of 2s and a 3. And all of a sudden, we're down 2.
Yeah.
So I think it's not necessarily. I don't think it's comfortable in the way that they're overlooking opponents but I think it's because we've gotten used to playing these, not as Big 12 teams that we've stomped, we've ran over them. That we've now looked at teams such as Kansas and Texas Tech, and we're like, okay, we have a sizable lead with a little bit of time left or not much left for them to do something with. So I think we're fine. And they kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit. Yeah. So I don't think it's that necessarily that we're overlooking opponents. I just think towards the end of the games, if they see the lead is bigger than 4, it's okay. We can relax, settle down a little bit. And I think we've got to but got to get back to playing. Because UConn, we played to the final whistle. Florida, it was to the final whistle.
Well, here, I'm going to jump in. I got to get in here now because you've put a lot out on the table, right? So let's address that. Let's organize the plates. There's lots of food, but it's not necessarily in an appetizing order. So let's just rearrange it a little bit and get us all sorted out, okay? So, yes, they have struggled to close recently. I love the fact that you pointed out the BYU game, which a lot of people would overlook because they won, but it was an abysmal display of closing, right? They barely hung on to a game that shouldn't have been close. You said they were up by 11 against Kansas. That was with 12 minutes left. They were up by that much against BYU with 90 seconds to go, right? So that was very concerning. But I thought, okay, maybe you have a chance to learn from a victory, which is what good teams do. And then you've got the adjustments you're hoping to see from the Kansas loss. Here's the first time they've lost. How will they address that in a close game, possibly on Saturday? They find themselves in that position, and once again, they can't close. So now the concerning thing to me, and I'm not of the belief that the sky is actually falling. I was being facetious at the show open.
No.
But the one biggest area of concern, of which I have two, this is the one, is you've had basically a week and a half to address some of these concerns with the final minute and change, and it hasn't gotten any better, right? You had a chance in overtime. You had a chance at the end of regulation against Tech, and for some reason, Hazi, and I'll tell you part of the reason, and I'm not an excuse maker, and I'm not going to make excuses now, is they were thin. I mean, they didn't have a lot of players, and
Absolutely
so you
right.
can't. Arizona is a fast team that thrives in transition, and where Ethan and I disagree, and we'll get him on in a second. Where Ethan and I disagree is I think that their style of playing suffocating defense, dominating down low, and scoring in transition ultimately will be enough. Ultimately, it will be enough to take them through March Madness and have a very long run. He's of the belief that you've got to complement that with some three-point shooting, which in today's basketball is very hard to disagree with. But I do believe that what they have, they can win without that component, right? But here's the part where Ethan is right. If you're going to have effectively a 6-player rotation, because Aristo didn't play and Kopi didn't play in the second half, and in the first half, he may as well have not played either because he had 2 points on 4 free throws, right? That was it. He didn't make a field goal. He was virtually invisible, right? And maybe he was playing hurt, and that's part of it. But he's been shrinking recently, right? So it's not just the injury. Here's the thing, though, Hazi. You can't play fast, right? You can't score in transition for an entire 40, in this case, 45-minute game, if you're playing six players. You don't. There's no team in the world that has that kind of conditioning to play that style nonstop. And where the other thing I disagree with you that I wanted to address is this is not an issue of complacency in my view, because what I saw on Saturday, I had a very good view. We broadcasted, Reed and I, was maximum effort. I mean, that team played really hard. Both teams, I thought, every offensive rebound, right, every loose ball, there was no stone left unturned. And if Arizona's going to play that way, offensively, they simply can't have that speed component right at the end. And because of the complexion of their team and their lack of three-point shooting, they don't have the ability to really perform in a half-court offense slowly, which I think is why we're seeing them struggle at the end of the game. So that's at least what I'm seeing. So where Ethan's right is if they're going to have a 6 or 7 player rotation and they're going to have to play slow at the end of games and they can't make threes, they're not going to win those games. So he's right in that regard. Arizona needs to lean on their depth. They need to stay healthy, first of all, but they've got to find more players that they can use so that they continue to play with speed and score in transition, because they're not a good three-point shooting team.
Okay, this is the last point I'm going to make before I give it back to Ethan. I'm sorry, Ethan. But it's like, I kind of see it. Do you remember the 2023 Yankees? And I'm only asking you this because you are a New York guy, too.
So 2023, that's the season they didn't make the playoffs at all?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you remember what their biggest problem was that season?
Well, you could say there were a couple. We'll see if I get one of what you're looking for. They weren't a great fielding team, first off. Is that what you wanted?
But I was going to say closing pitching.
Yeah, that's true, too. Well, the bullpen hasn't been great for them the last couple of years. But, yeah, their bullpen's, yeah.
So I kind of see us looking like that only right now, because my biggest thing right now is depending on who can stay healthy, it's going to get thinner. And I do agree with you and Ethan that the shooting's got to come a little bit more if we are going to be thinner, because unfortunately you can't, and I think we've seen this in both the NBA and in NCAA, where you can't have these 7-man rotations and expect to, run up and down, but also not be, tired or because even in 45 minutes they gave great effort, but can they sustain that over the course of a season? We've seen the Knicks stall out twice now.
Yeah.
twice in years past where they've had great years, but you're playing 7-8 man rotations the whole game, and dudes are exhausted by the time you get to the end of the game. And I brought up the Yankees point simply because even before the injury last Saturday, even on Monday, and even with the BYU game, there was struggles just closing out.
Yeah.
So that was the last point I wanted to make. Ethan,
right.
I'll give it to you.
Yeah, let's hear so you heard what I said, right, in response to the three-point shooting.
I'd like to agree with you with the transition stuff and playing tough defense.
Yeah.
My whole issue with the team is that we just don't have a closer from three. Like, if it's a close game going into the last 4 minutes and they hit a three, that means we have to get a score. We have to score. We have to get a stop. And then we have to get another score to be up one because we just don't have the three-point ability to match teams.
Hazi, I have two things to say. First of all, does Ethan understand that I did take math after second grade? That's the first. And the second thing is he goes to Los Angeles for 1 week. He forgets to talk into the microphone. I mean, every other word, he's facing the computer over there. So just those were the two initial things I heard.
We're rusty.
So anyway, so Ethan, you make a great point, right? There's no question. They're spotting in the case of, let's just go with the game that we saw on Saturday. In the case of Texas Tech, Tech makes 7 more threes than Arizona. That's a 21-point deficit that they have to dig themselves out of. Now, Tech also took double the amount of three-point attempts, right? But still, 21 more points in double the amount of tries is still good math for Tech. I do think that Arizona's advantage is so strong that they can overcome the math that you're referring to. But the issue here, Ethan, is the complexion of their team. The style that they are trying to play requires more than a 6-player rotation, which 100%. Is what they had in the second half on Saturday.
100%. But, some of these guys, everybody, if you want to play this fast, physical game, everybody has to be a factor. Every player in your rotation, all 8 guys have to step up.
And they are.
And they have
generally,
to play.
There isn't a weak link
for the
in
first
that
23 games, we saw that.
Yeah.
And against Kansas, we played well. We turned the ball over a few more times, and we fouled them a lot more than they fouled us. So, it was a defensive issue. But
the issue is that let's just talk about the 6 players that were on the floor on Saturday in the final moments, right? You've got one player virtually. I mean, Anthony Delorso is a 3-point shooter. He's kind of, to me, the player that could make or break this run because recently, I mean, he's become like Koa Pete. He's invisible. I mean, the next person to find him, I mean, we may as well call him Nancy Guthrie, right? I don't know where he is. I mean, he is missing. And so the next person,
it took me a second to realize
the next person to find
wild.
Anthony Delorso, they should get a $50,000 reward because if he can shoot, if he can perform in games and have a presence, right, with his 3-point shooting, he is exactly what they're missing. But 2 for 6 on Saturday, right? I mean, that's just not a volume. And instead, you've got Ivan Karchenkov, who I think is a huge fan. He took 14 shots, right? Now, they're out there for 2 different reasons. The 2 of them should be able to fill in the cracks because Delorso's 3-point shooter. Karchenkov is basically everything but that. And Ethan, for some odd reason, you've got Karchenkov with 14 field goal attempts, and you've got Delorso with 6. Make that make sense. Make it make sense.
I can't make it make sense. There's no way to because
me.
Karchenkov shouldn't be taking all those shots.
Yeah.
Like point blank, period. He can't be taking all those. They need to go to Bradley. They need to go to Burries. Somebody else in the 6-man rotation because he can't shoot. Like I've watched him miss so
Who's
many
that?
threes.
Karchenkov?
I've watched.
I
him
wouldn't
miss,
say can't shoot. He's not out there to make 3-pointers.
I've watched him miss too many shots.
Yeah.
He's out there for his other abilities, his arms.
His
length.
I said to Hazi, I said it on Friday. I think it was Friday. He's our Josh Hart, right? I mean, and Josh Hart, every once in a while he'll crank one in, and Hazi said Alex Caruso, which is true.
I said Kawhi Leonard,
Leonard is
rookie Leonard without his offensive bag.
How many? And wow. Hazi's thinking about what it was Kawhi yesterday. I didn't watch the All-Star game. Was it Kawhi who lit it up?
Well,
I don't think Karchenkov can do that.
No, Kawhi developed the ridiculous offensive
Well, then why
bag,
don't you use an example that's more present then? A player that's currently playing like Karchenkov. Rather than have to go back to 15 years ago.
Caruso take. I think that's a good take.
No, McConnell's a much better shooter.
McConnell's a much better offensive
sorry.
player.
I'm sorry, Hazi. I appreciate the effort, but McConnell's all right. So that's my biggest issue. And it's not necessarily the coaching, just the way the game shook out, but long term, right? If they're going to dig themselves out of this, you've got 6 players in this rotation. Karchenkov is not shooting threes. Tobe Awaka and Krivas every once in a while, but that's not why they're out there, right? You can say, oh, well, Dave, Tobe Awaka is actually he does have a nice looking shot, but he's not out there to shoot threes.
He's
That's
5 for 8 on the season.
right.
I tell you,
5 for 8
though,
on the
I tell you,
season.
you know who he does have a better shot than?
Who's that?
Koa Pete.
Yeah, probably he does.
They both
Is that
No,
is that a crazy
Koa
take?
Pete's not a 3-point shooter.
I
so
can't.
the only two players and again, Aristo didn't play, right? So the only two players that were on the floor on Saturday that even would think about taking a three, or maybe Jaden Bradley, maybe, and he's not a strong 3-point shooter. It's Burries and Del Orso, and like I said, Del Orso is missing.
He's been missing too.
He is invisible. He is translucent.
He was so hot to start the season too, against UCLA and against who else? Who he had back-to-back 20-point games, if I'm not mistaken. And UConn, he played well against UConn.
Yep.
That's the game. And ever since then, he's gone quiet. He's been hibernating.
Yes. So here's the thing. They don't have the 3-point shooting. I still take their defense. The defense I saw them play against Tech on Saturday was championship level defense. There's no two ways around that. I thought they were really, really strong defensively. I would change almost nothing, right? You can't knock them there. The rebounding, I thought Tech was really, really impressive on the boards. They were countering Arizona, like I said, battling, but Arizona was just lacking that threat. Who was going to score? I mean, Hazi, in overtime, they made one field goal.
Well,
it was Burries, the first possession of overtime. They didn't make another field goal after that.
The issue is,
Give me a
when you
break.
look at our roster and the guys that were missing, Koa Pete and Aristo didn't play. That's not like Koa Pete's not going to score all those points.
No, he's not shooting any threes.
He's not shooting.
No.
So who's
he takes those bodies off. He takes those bodies off of shooters.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is Koa down low is going to demand at least 2 bodies, meaning one of 2 people is going to be open. Mo Krivas, or one of 3.
Yeah.
Mo Krivas, Anthony Del Rosso, or Braden Berries.
Yeah.
When you lose Koa Pete like that, and Toby's great. Yes, Krivas is great, but I'm not asking you to put 2 bodies on Toby. Why? Because the difference is Toby, while he is great inside, he can lose his dribble a little bit. And Mo, he is human. You can stop him even though he's 7'2". But with Koa, he's gonna bully you. So you have to put 2 on him, which means Del Rosso is gonna be open in the corner. Krivas can come down and cut late. Burries is gonna be open on the wing. But when you take Koa out of the equation,
that's
now,
fair.
I can play 1-on-1 and everybody else and stay to my spot.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong about that, Hazi. The bigger issue is this, right? We saw what we've seen the last couple of games is what happens to Arizona when they have to focus on their half-court offense.
Yes.
And it's not pretty even.
Feels like the Rockets almost
from
last season with absolutely zero half-court offense.
Only took 15 minutes for 15 minutes, Hazi. 15 minutes for Ethan to reference Houston. That's pretty good.
I mean, it's not a bad
I think
comparison.
Houston's half-court offense is a lot better than what we saw
this year,
Saturday.
but last year was bottom 5 in the NBA.
Okay.
But they love to play defense and they love to get out and run, just like Arizona.
Now, there's one other thing. Again, and I'm not in the excuse business, and I think I've been relatively tough on the team, right? I'm not one to usually sugarcoat it or be a homer. The one thing that you have to be fair to Arizona is there were some bounces that certainly didn't go their way. You think about in overtime, even the final possession, right? Tech gets 3 they get 3 looks at it. They're able to virtually end the game there. They had that other play where it's a beautiful block, I think, by Krivas, right? And the ball just happens to land right in the paint, right in his chest, right? There was nothing. And there was another one, I think, earlier in the second half where it's just the ball didn't bounce Arizona's way, right? And those were critical plays. It's not like these were just kind of arbitrary. They were key situations in the game. So they did have a little bit of tough luck. It is what it is, right? Now, say what you will about Karchenko. If you guys were criticizing his shooting, he made 2 pretty darn big free throws at the end of that game to force into overtime. I mean, let's get that squared away. 2 big free throws to extend that game.
Well, he hasn't been a bad free throw shooter the entire season.
No, he's a lot. He's 10 percentage points,
right?
He's 10 percentage points better than Koa Pete. which I think if Ethan went out there, he'd be about 5 percentage points better than Koa Pete from the free throw line.
Yeah, well.
Can you make 6 out of 10 if we just went right to the South break right now from the free throw line?
I like my odds.
6 out of 10.
I don't think I have a bad jumper. I don't think it's
well. You're not. You can't be jumping from the free throw line though.
Yeah, well, I think I have good form.
Okay.
Good form.
6 out of 10 is all you got to do to match Pete. I mean, that's not saying a whole lot, Hazi.
So, way back in November.
Oh boy.
When we were first starting to talk Arizona basketball, we had a big argument. I don't know if the listeners remember, but it was.
Why don't you remind them? Jog their memory.
It was about Koa Pete, and we came on the show, and you were like, Koa Pete is unbelievable. He just dropped 30. They were all dunks. He was so dominant. I was like, he can't stretch the floor at all, and he's gonna struggle a little bit.
Yeah,
he's gonna struggle in some games.
Now there's a mix. You're both right. Now Hazi doesn't realize why he's right, but I'll tell him why he's right. Hazi just said, and he happens to be correct, that when Pete's on the floor, he demands a great deal of attention from the opponent, right?
But from the paint.
I understand it's from the paint.
I agree.
But nonetheless, as a team, basketball is a team sport, right? So if they're dedicating a player and a half on Pete, I don't care if it's in the paint or in the stands.
No.
There's still a mismatch somewhere to be had, which ultimately in the NBA or wherever, that is an advantage, right? So
can I finish my point? I was wrong for a while. He has been unbelievable. He scored 20 in so many games. He's kind of stretched the floor. He's hit threes in a few games here. I know he hit 2 against Arizona State. But as we've seen the season go on and they get more tape on him and they just put bigger guys on him, guys that match up physically with Koa Pete, it's been tougher for him to score because he's got only so many moves that he can go to in the painted area, and he can't, create too much for himself outside of the three-point line.
Right.
That's where I feel like these other guys have to step up though, because to me, I actually think Koa's passing is very underrated. Because he has the ability to find, like, I don't know if you guys know, but every time if I'm in an arena and I see Kribas cutting and Koa's got 2 on him, I know Koa's gonna find him.
Yeah.
I'm banking on it. I'd bank my house on it. Sorry, Mom. I'd bank my house on it.
I don't think the deed is in your name yet. I don't think you have that ability.
But to me, I think this is now where the other guys have to step up, because if he's going to have these 2 bodies on him, he's going to be hit with these 2 taller guys. Krivas has got to, come down low. Barry's has got to start hitting these shots, and Deli's just got to find a stroke again.
How about he just finds the court? How about he just figures out that he's out playing a game?
Because
that would be the start.
He had, I forgot who he had 11 against. It wasn't he was who.
But even 11, I mean, he's got a beautiful
it's not
shot.
enough, yes, but it was at least an improvement from what we were seeing from before. But then he went back to having the threes and the no points. To me, Deli's got to get his rhythm going, and especially now that they're gonna start doubling. They're gonna start doubling Koa, but they're also gonna start doubling Krivas.
Yeah, because
Krivas is just so physical too, to where even that one body on him is gonna take a beating. So you can't have that one person on it.
Well, remember one thing. Tommy Lloyd at the beginning of the season, when people were trying to figure out, well, are you just not going to take threes? He said he'd like to be between 15 and 20 attempts, even at
which
some
he
games,
was
25,
against.
Which I was just going to say.
He was against Tech.
Which they had 16 attempts against Tech. The issue is they made 4 of them. And if they make
you
7,
can't do that.
Right? If
you
they make 7
out
of 16 or even 6, they win that game. I mean, they would have won, right? I mean, you're talking about 6 points in a game that went to overtime. So, I mean,
I have one last thing, if I can intervene
Go
here
ahead.
about Arizona. So earlier we talked about how, they play physical, they love to defend, they love to run in transition, but they don't really shoot. The thing that I want to say going forward, if you will, is they have to be perfect on the glass and pretty much perfect in transition. They can't, they have to out-rebound teams. They have to win that margin. And they have
there's not much to indicate that,
that
they're going to get
clean.
out-rebounded.
Yeah, no, I agree with the size that Arizona has. They shouldn't be getting out-rebounded. But against Tech, they only had 2 more rebounds, and against Kansas, they only had 4 more rebounds. So you have to win that margin by more of a deficit because you can't shoot. Another thing is you can't foul. You can't give Kansas 25 free throws in that game when you're only taking 16. You can't turn the ball over as much as they have been. 13 turnovers is too many if you can't shoot the ball.
Yeah.
Because you're losing the math game already. You have to play nearly perfect.
Look, I think that so let's really relitigate this discussion from November, and then we'll transition into how we think the team should operate moving forward. Because say what you will about the roster complexion or whatever you may have, this is who they have going into March, right? So now it's going to come down to what's the best way to utilize your players. So before we get into that, let's finish up this conversation from November. The thing I said, Hazi, the teams that are very 3-point contingent. I'll make an NBA reference here that's a little bit more accurate. somebody like the Celtics, your live and die by the three kind of team, right? Of which there are some in college basketball this year. Those teams will eventually, in a March Madness style tournament where it's not a 7-game series, it's one by one all the way through. You have one bad 3-point shooting night, your season's over, right? And Arizona's style of play is a lot less volatile. So I thought at the beginning of the year, when I got one look at the team, I said this team, this identity is conducive to March Madness because they're not living and dying by the three, and they will have a consistent identity that, should they be able to execute it, it's not going to abandon them at any time, right? They may run into a hot team who possibly beats them because they make a million threes, right? And then Ethan becomes correct about the math. But at the same time, those teams could also lay total eggs. So there's two sides to the coin. I tend to favor the consistent side. I know what I'm going to get every time, rather than that who knows. But, that's ultimately the conversation you have to have.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that the style that Arizona plays is good. I'm just not a fan of the math game, but I do think it works, and it's been consistent all year long. We only lost to Tech by
went to overtime.
4. It went to 3. It went to overtime, and then we lost to Kansas by 4.
Yep.
So even in these losses, we played close games, and we made a few mistakes that we wish we could have back.
And that's really the thing, right? As much as you want to declare emergency, they were up 11 in the second half against Kansas. They were up 6 with 3 minutes left to go against Tech. Now, I told you why they weren't able to close the game, right? Because the game slowed down and so forth. But the bottom line is I don't think they can ever get blown out because they don't play a style that's going to abandon them, like I just said. I don't think they can get crushed. I just don't see it happening.
I don't really
Now, that doesn't
see
matter,
it
right? Losing
either.
by 3 is the same as getting crushed in a March Madness tournament.
I do agree with you on that, David, because even these last 2 games where we looked, maybe not our best, maybe abysmal. I don't want to say abysmal because we haven't looked that bad, but we haven't been playing our best, and it hasn't been usual up to par Arizona standards for a team that is now number 4 in the country. We haven't lost, but our combined loss margin is 7 points.
Right.
We're not getting killed. We're not getting blown out. So it's just yet I don't think we're in a state of emergency yet, because here's the thing. In as somebody who's now sitting in those press conference rooms, in those after locker rooms with Tommy Lloyd and they're calm. Even after these losses, they're calm. They're like, listen, we're gonna still play our game. We're having off nights. It happens to the best player. It happens to the best players in the world.
Yeah.
So guess what? We're gonna come back out Wednesday night. We're gonna play our game, and let the chips fall where they may.
Right. No, that's absolutely right. The other thing is Arizona's style that we're maybe questioning or disappointed in. They got to the free throw line 31 times on Saturday, and even just a few more of those. Right. I mean, the attempts. My only real criticism is you look at they're getting to the 31 free throw attempts and 16 3-point attempts. For the team that Arizona is, I think those numbers are right where you want them to be. If in a perfect world, you'd like to see Del Orso taking a few more and Karchenkov taking a few less, especially from the other side of the arc. That's really my main criticism for how they're structuring the offense. And look, if they're going to have 6 players, it's going to inhibit the way that they play, and they're a fast team that couldn't play fast.
I just want them to shoot with more confidence. I think that, some of these shots, they kind of like hesitate to take them. Some of these threes especially, and when you shoot with confidence, it feels like they go in a lot more.
Yeah.
Shooting 25% from 3 against Tech just can't happen, and if you're going to hit 4 threes, you need to be taking at most 12.
Yeah. All right, so let's do this. Both of you, I'll ask the questions first, and then I'll start to maybe do what I do best, which is just nitpick what you guys have to say rather than craft my own opinion. So here's what I'm going to do. Congratulations. You both have been hired to be on the coaching staff for the remainder of the year, okay? Now the team is grappling with a 2-game losing streak, but they won their first 23, so that's the good news. You've got to diagnose what's going wrong, and then you've got to give the prescription here. What would you do? You've been given a voice in the coaching staff. What is your prescription for how to fix the team?
So I'm coming in as Coach EG. I'm the assistant.
Okay, that's great.
Assistant
what do you
head
have
coach.
I don't care what you call yourself. Help me win.
I think that we just need to clean up the turnovers. Like,
so you think turnovers are really that critical right now?
Well, yes. I think 13 isn't the biggest number, but when you don't shoot three or when you don't hit as many threes as some of these other teams, you can't turn the ball.
Now,
you can't lose the ball.
They did have 7 turnovers against Tech. That's really not bad.
No, that's not bad. I think Tech played great defensively, and I think they forced us to take tough shots. And, they just came out on top. They hit 11
Hazi,
threes.
get in here because he's talking about turnovers as his number one issue. They had 7 turnovers on Saturday. So I got to hear something else. Give me another thought.
Turnovers aren't the biggest thing because, listen, it's going to happen.
A direct disagreement with Ethan right off the gate. Coach Lloyd, first of all, disregard him in his entirety. Here's what I have to say. Go ahead.
So I do agree with you with the 3-point shooting. However, I don't think we need to shoot more. I agree with the confidence
16
thing.
attempts was the number against Tech. Where do you want, ideally – I agree with. I think right around 20. I wouldn't go much higher than 20 with the team that they have. I think if they could be 7 of 19 from 3 every game, they'd win a lot of games.
With the team that they have, I'm not mad at 12 to 14.
Yeah.
But my biggest thing is this, and you can call it whatever type of take that you want to call it. Get Anthony Del Rosso's confidence back.
All right, so you're taking what I'm saying.
Anthony Del Rosso's confidence back. Not only that, but get his 3-ball get that 3-ball confidence back. Because I get it, Blood. You're struggling. You're having a tough stretch of the season.
Yeah.
I get it. And it's hard to stay confident.
So you're telling Coach Lloyd to activate number 3.
I'm telling him, listen, dog, I don't care if you go 0 for freaking 10. Shoot it.
Okay. I don't disagree with you. All right, Ethan. So first of all, Hazi said you're full of malarkey.
Yeah.
And then he said, let's activate Del Orso.
He just fully disregarded what I had to say. But
I think he makes some salient points.
I just have to, criticize your point a little bit. The thing with confidence is it's all a mental game. If you're missing threes and you're not confident in your shot, it's a lot harder to overcome than a coach just saying shoot the damn ball.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot harder to overcome for a player. You can't just tell him to shoot it because he's not confident in his shot right now. So I guess you got to get him back in the lab and you got to get him taking these 100 threes a day, 25 from each spot, both corners, wings, and the center. That would actually add to 125. So 125 threes a day for Anthony Del Orso. That's how we're getting his confidence back.
We talked about this, I think, Hazi, last week. And in my view, confidence, and Ethan is right. I think he's spot on. Confidence is derived from previous demonstrated ability, right? You can't just walk in a room and be confident. You've got to lean on, okay, I've done this before, and I'm confident based on the results, right? So I think that if Del Orso, look, they've got to involve him. They've got to put him in successful scenarios.
But that's my thing with Del Rosso. In years past, when we have involved him and we have put him in those better scenarios and situations,
it's been a mixed bag at best.
It's been a mixed bag, but when he's on, he's on.
Yeah.
In some of it, you can say the offense was different, but the offense was different, but the personnel was different. Sure, and I do agree with Ethan that like it is like a mental thing, and if you're having him take 125 threes in practice, absolutely. Question is how many is he making in practice, and if he can make that in practice, and if he's making 125. If he's making 25 in practice, I'm confident in him.
Well, 25 out of 125?
25 out of 125 is not a very good number. You
20%.
You want him to hit probably in practice. This is practice. This isn't games. This isn't game.
Allen Iverson.
I would I would say you want him hitting probably 60% of his shots in practice.
I would say half.
Like
half.
if you're having him just sit in the corner and you're rebounding from him, he's just shooting.
Yeah.
You want him to hit 6 out of every 10 because there's no defender, there's nobody guarding him. You want him to be hitting these shots.
Yeah.
If he's hitting these
bluntly, I want him anywhere from 3 for 8 or 4 for 10 every game. That's where I think he should be for 3-pointers. And find the other 8 attempts from a couple other guys. Bradley takes 2, Burries takes 4, and then 1 and 1 for whoever else. That should be right. Whatever you want to say, that should be the complexion, right? And I think right now they've got. He's on the line. He's on the roster. And Anthony Del Orso is right there. I think got to use him, especially when the game slows down and you need that half court. Somebody to just shoot an open shot. It shouldn't be too hard. If they're gonna take away down low, right? If they're gonna take care of Burries and Pete, like we've all said that's what the defenses do. How that doesn't create looks for Del Orso, I can't understand that. Make it make sense.
There's no way to. You need.
All right.
You need all of these guys to play in the paint in order for Del Orso to get open, and you need Krivos to get double.
So you guys did an okay
worked.
job. I think maybe you need a couple of years scouting before you're actually on a coaching staff, but I've heard worse. So we'll leave it at that. Here's what we do know. Arizona's lost 2 straight. They very nearly, Hazi, handed BYU that game. They said, here, why don't you take it? I don't want it. Take it. You take it. I don't want it. That's very close to what happened, right?
Right.
But it didn't happen. So they did beat them in their building. Give them credit for that. Now BYU is coming here on Wednesday. What are your initial feelings? Also, Arizona dropped in the rankings from 1 to 4. Don't look now. BYU is all the way down to 23 in the newest AP poll. So what should we be expecting between two teams that were supposed to be great? Expectations were sky high when they played a couple of weeks ago in Provo. All of a sudden, not so much.
To be quite honest with you, David, I'm expecting a little bit of the same game, but a better performance down the stretch from the Wildcats.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is, well, you can say, oh, well, they were at home at Tech and they did what they did against Tech. Yes, but at the same time, with the thing with BYU is they don't have the Sanders kid who was there last time, making a lot of those big threes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also Devonta is great, but I think we did a very good job at containing him in Provo. So I'm expecting more of the same, but with a better finish from Arizona this time around. I do believe BYU is going to put up a fight. I do believe the effort is going to be there. I believe that it's going to be a 40-minute game.
Right.
I just think we're going to have a better 4-minute game than 40-minute game than BYU does.
Yeah. No, I think that you make some salient points. I was just checking to see if there's any update on Koa Pete because we're talking about there's just not that many scoring options for them in the half court. And if Pete is not going to be available, you think Aristote's got an illness, so he'll be playing Wednesday. But, it's a 7-man roster if Koa Pete isn't playing. So
very limited.
They're going to probably need him out there.
The thing that I'm nervous, I could say, about the BYU game on Wednesday is I was just looking through the stat sheet for the game in Provo, and Rob Wright, now he's going to be their starting point guard after Sanders just went out, shot 3 for 16, and they only lost by 3. If he shoots anywhere a little bit better, 3 for 16 from the field, so under 20%. Let's say he shoots 30%, still not a good night. They win that game. And I'm not, I don't think Arizona's going to lose, but I'm just pointing out why people could be nervous for the game.
Now, BYU recently, it has not been pretty, right? Their last couple of games, they lost at Oklahoma State. Now, Arizona played Oklahoma State. I know Ethan knows that because he was on the call for Camp Radio. They were never in consideration of losing that game. BYU lost to them. So that is worth mentioning. They also lost on their home floor to Arizona and Houston, and they had very tight competitive victories against Baylor and Colorado. So BYU, they're at their rock bottom as much as we think the panic button is being sounded here. BYU, a team that is got NBA talent, right, lots of national recognition, they're not cutting it right now, and you have to think they're going to be desperate and frustrated on Wednesday, but also maybe it won't take long for Arizona to assert their dominance in that game. It's a very interesting matchup.
I'm definitely excited to watch it.
It's an interesting matchup because both of these teams are going to be in the locker room saying, "Hey, we've got to figure it out, right? We've got to respond to what's been going on, and prove not only to the outside world but to ourselves that we've got what it takes. Here's a good test." And only one of them at the end is going to be able to say that they've made some adjustments.
No, really? Only one of them? Because only one team can win, right? No, I definitely I do think that both teams are kind of in a not panic, but sort of like it's a must-win game for both teams because BYU's been struggling. Arizona's just lost two of their last 2 games, so they had a win this week. But I definitely think whichever team adjusts more and whichever team plays to the other team's weaknesses better will win.
All right, so let's do this. The NBA is in the All-Star break second half. We had some festivities yesterday. I didn't watch a second of it. I protest anything All-Star break in any sport, Hazi. I don't care. Now, you said the effort level was better, right? So you guys can have this conversation if you'd like. I'm gonna check out on this. I didn't watch it. If you want to talk NBA All-Star break for 5 minutes,
sure,
that's fine. And then when we're done, Hazi and I had a conversation about the NBA, our outlook in the second half. We'll finish with that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well,
there.
here's my take on the All-Star game. I think the World versus USA was a cool concept, but when they had 2 USA teams in there, I do agree with you on that. It just didn't really make sense. Like, how did they decide those teams? How did they come up with who was on that team?
Right.
And it just kind of didn't really make sense to me. But I understand the concept. You have 3 teams playing, each play 2 games. It's a round robin. You play against both teams, and then you go to the final. And I think it was a cool concept, and I think the players played a lot harder than they have in the past. I think Wemby was awesome in it. I think he was, playing his butt off. I think he was, actually playing defense, and Kawhi was actually playing offense. It was cool to watch. But I'm also just not the biggest fan of the All-Star game because I just don't like how players treat it as a, sort of non-factor in the league. What do you think about it?
So I only disagree with you on that because, unfortunately, those stats don't mean anything to them when it comes to contract time, when it comes to, how much they get paid later on. But I do agree with you that I don't think we needed more than one USA team. I think the world team, maybe you could have separated a little bit more, but then you're going to say, oh, well, there's guys who don't deserve it, and this, that, and the third. So I think the weekend as a whole wasn't a success because I haven't cared about the Celebrity All-Star game since Kevin Hart stopped playing. Sorry, not sorry. But it's also the dunk contest. Shout out to Carter Bryant and
Kashad. Kashad Johnson.
Keyshawn Johnson.
Keyshawn?
Yes.
It's not Kashad. Keyshawn Johnson.
It's Keyshawn.
It's Keshad.
Keshad. Okay, so it was a mix.
Keyshawn Johnson. Keyshawn Johnson won the whole thing, and Carter did his thing. But Jesus Christ, was that?
Yeah, that dunk contest was that was not anything special. Jackson Hayes was abysmal. What was his name? Jace Richardson nearly killed himself.
Gave himself a concussion.
He nearly killed himself.
In terms of the game, I understood why we had 2 USA teams. I didn't like it in the slightest.
So I kind of have a tough question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't like the 3 teams with the 2 U.S. teams and the 1 world team. If you're Adam Silver, what do you do to fix it?
My hot take is you do the same thing the NHL did with the 4 Nations face-off last year. That brought them, not only did that bring them a lot of great viewers, but those players played.
Okay, so I have a follow-up to you. What are the nations that you pick? Because you can't take Serbia because you have Jokic and that's it.
Right.
And you can't take Slovenia because you have Luka and that's it.
So
you obviously have the US.
USA, Canada.
Okay.
France.
Okay.
And then for my third,
so you have Wemby and that's it for France. That's the only player. That's the only name that comes to my mind whenever.
For France.
So basically, what I'm hearing is the Olympics all over again. And where the U.S. is gonna win because they have all the superstars. So what if you split up the U.S. and made it a 6-team tournament? What if you split up the U.S. and you had them take certain players from, you did a Western Conference U.S. team and an Eastern Conference U.S. team, and then you took we could do like Eastern Europe. So we could take like Serbia and Slovenia and put them on the same team.
It's either that, or if you want to stick with the nations, fine. Or you do what you were doing in years past, where you had the top 2 getters. Pick the team. Instead of that, though, you have the top 4. You have the top 4, and you keep the same format that you kept, or top 3, whatever, that you've kept this year. Where let's say you have Wemby, Curry, or let's say like the top 3 are Wemby, Curry, and LeBron, and then you have the rest of the All-Stars.
Right.
So you have the draft on TNT, and I get people will say, oh, well, how is that going to give them the incentive to play again? Yes.
I think there should be some money involved. I think there should be some money or, some contract incentive where, if you make the All-Star game, you get an incentive, and if you win the All-Star game, you get an even bigger incentive. Something on that line, because I learned all about contracts this past week at my whole program thing. We don't need to get too much in detail into it, but incentives are what players want. They're what players like. you need bonuses in their contracts.
And that's the thing.
And I think if you put an all-star bonus in there, which there is, because if you make an all-star team, you're now eligible for a max. But I think that incentives are what get players riled up, and that's what they want to play for. So if you put an all-star incentive in their current contract, then they'll play harder. And if they win, you can make it even big. You can give them an extra $1 million. So that's my idea for how they can fix.
I do agree with
fix the all-star game. David, you sitting over there wide-eyed? You got any thoughts?
Well, the one thing you mentioned that I don't think is perfectly relevant is you have incentives to qualifying for the all-star game, but there's no incentive for production or effort in the game itself, right? If I say, hey, Ethan, if you qualify for the All-Star game, we'll give you $1 million. That's great. How does that boost the quality of the All-Star game itself?
If you win it, you get $1.5 million.
So you just want to pay them for winning the All-Star game?
Why not? That's how you get effort.
Well, ultimately,
I do think you gotta do.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fine idea, right? And that's obviously been the approach with the NBA Cup, and seems to be working relatively well. So, yeah, I mean, I can't completely disagree with it on that front. The NBA is going to have to come up with the money for that, right? If they're going to spend money, then they've got to make sure they're making it on the other end. And ultimately, that's going to require some faith from sponsors. So
only about 50% goes to the players right now. So what if you make it 52?
50% of what?
50% of total revenue of the NBA.
So you think they're going to give the players an extra 2% of their total revenue to help the All-Star game? I mean, that's a major component of their business model. No.
Yeah, no,
now,
probably
now
not.
if they want to find a little pot to pay the players for trying in the All-Star game, then that's a fine strategy. All I'm saying is now the cost of operating the All-Star game just got a little bit more expensive, so they're gonna have to hope that the television sponsors make it work.
But here's my thing, in my biggest thing with why I think, and I disagree with the Team USA 2-team format. With this format and why it worked, I only disagree with Ethan on this because of this. The 4 big names that sat out yesterday: Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, Giannis, Stephen Curry. And yet somehow it didn't feel like the product dropped off. It felt like it's still, the game mattered to them.
Yeah, I think the NBA did the right thing, Hazi, by putting the country component into it. We said that was really the only way they could save it. That's what we said on Friday, to try to emulate what hockey did. Now, the issue, you run into one really big problem, right? Basketball is predominantly played in the United States. Where we already had this conversation on Friday. Basketball is predominantly played in the United States. Yes, the European players have gotten a lot better, and if there's some Americans that want to, represent other countries, then that can work too. But ultimately, if it's going to be just one U.S. team and you're going to make whatever contraption you can to have a European team and maybe a world team, whatever it may be, how are you going to get to 6 teams? How are you making that happen? There's just not that much variety.
You could do regions. You could do Eastern Europe. You could do Western Europe. You could do Central Europe.
If you do regions now, Ethan, do you start to lose an identity, and then in that identity you lose passion and effort, right? I may get up if I'm from Germany, right, and I'm playing for Team Germany. That may get me going. If I'm playing for Team Western Europe, does that motivate me in the same way? Like, oh, David, I want you to.
Sounds good in
Are you
theory,
a New York Jets fan, or are you a Northeastern Corridor of the United States Jets fan? Right? All of a sudden, that's someone. It's like, yeah, go Corridor. Let's go Corridor. We have trains and you don't. We use them. We have public transit.
In theory, it sounds good in theory, but yeah, when you say it like that, it won't work at all.
If your goal is effort, then you need to tie that into some strong emotional connection.
But that's why I said, like, go back to having the players drafted.
Yeah.
But you have more than just 2 players.
Yeah.
Because the issues with when they started having the players drafted is, besides the Kobe year, when Kobe had passed away, you had 3 quarters of just everybody chucking up shots.
Yeah.
And then that 4th quarter target score, and then who cared?
Yeah. Now, here I just thought of something as you were talking, so maybe this would work. If you had an East versus West American team, not based on the teams they play for now, but where they're from.
Regions.
No, but where they were from, right? Does that stir up anything? Or maybe it's North versus South. I don't know, whatever division is stronger, but we don't want to divide the country here and make things bad. Or we could do red states versus blue states. That could be fun, Hazi. Like, you've got California, New York, whatever, going up against Florida, Texas. I mean, you never know.
I agree with the whole East versus West.
Have Obama and Trump sitting in the front row. What do you think about that?
I agree with the East versus West, but based off of region thing, because think of it like if you were to do, I think, an East versus West based off of region thing, I think it's or even North versus South, depending on how you want to put it. I believe the West, you might have Kevin Durant, Ball brothers, because I know the East has both Steph and LeBron. Yeah. Because they're born in Ohio. Yep. So depending on where you want to put that, I put that more on the eastern side of the country.
That's what I said.
You're doing it.
That's what I said.
But it's like LeBron grew up in Ohio.
That's what I just said.
That's an interesting concept. I would just rather do it by Eastern Western Conference.
Yeah, but then that's what it's been. It's been East versus West for the existence of time, and it didn't work.
Why would you do it based on where they're
Because we're trying to stir up cultural divisions and make them care.
When they went back to the original East versus West format, the East put up 211 points. Nobody tried with that. Tyrese Halliburton ended the game with 60 points. And one other time is Tyrese Halliburton putting up 60.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We have to get away from East versus West because, as Hazi said, that was a disaster. Did either one of you guys see what somebody was on the Bill Simmons? Did you see that?
What?
Somebody was on the Bill Simmons podcast.
I haven't listened to Bill Simmons since the Texans lost.
And we don't talk much about other shows here, which I think is fine. I just saw this because it went very viral. And he goes, "How do you save the All-Star game?" I think he was on with a comedian. And maybe I shouldn't even say what the guy said. But basically, whatever. This isn't my take. This is what somebody else said. He's like, "Look, Bill, I think the only way you're going to get effort into it is if it was just like a racial game." And I was like, whoa. That's what he said.
What if you just put the hottest women in the front row?
He was like, but when he broke down the game, right? When he was listing the players, here's the bad part, right? So he says that and everyone's like, hold on a second, right?
I mean,
and then he's like, first of all, would that draw on television, yes or no? And it would, right?
100% would.
And the second thing is, he was listing the matchup, and it was actually like a pretty compelling game.
It's pretty even, huh? Because you get Luka and Jokic on one side.
Right, you get all the Eastern Europeans plus like Flag.
Yeah.
Cooper Flag.
So what? It's Luka, Jokic, Cooper, Dante DiVincenzo.
What? Well, there's Eastern Europeans. I mean, dig into that.
I just thought we were sticking with the racial one.
No, well, that is.
And then Eastern European, Nikola Jovic, right? Or Alfred Sengun.
You would definitely draw TV because people would watch. People would be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe the NBA did this. I have to see it."
It's just after that starting five, who does
Yeah, like definitely the white team
might be a little thin.
Yeah, it might be a little thin, but
I think Hazi's right. They would struggle with some depth.
People would be like, "Oh my God!"
Trying to say the white boy can't ball. The white boy can ball. It's just after you get past Sengun and Doncic and Jokic and Alex Caruso and DiVincenzo, that's six guys, cool. But then who else is on that bench?
No, it's just like the people would be like, "I can't believe the NBA did that. Like, how could they do that?" But it would bring in so much money.
I think what would be interesting is if you could, for football, it would be great if you had, were you born in the South or the North, right? And you get all the like Alabama kids and the Georgia kids going up against. The South would murder the North.
The South would kill the North.
But
California, it would have to be
California
East
would
versus
have to count as the North.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
100%.
You have to go back to like
because
1800s.
like 80% of the NFL is in the Sun Belt.
Right.
So you can't really do that in the NFL. Now in the NBA, you could do South versus North because there's players from Texas, there's players from California.
But anyway, the bottom line is, you have to try to toe the line of getting the players to care in some way without going too far in either direction. So however you make that happen, certainly you don't want to alienate.
Yeah, you don't want to make it a racial thing.
No, you don't. Now again, that wasn't my idea. That was on Bill Simmons' podcast. Some comedian said that, and the comments, as you know, I mean, I won't even repeat. Some of them were pretty funny. But.
Yeah, I only could imagine. I think the viewers can too. I think they know what the main gist of those comments were.
Yeah. So nonetheless, we'll move in a different direction. So here's what we did. We've already been on for almost an hour. We recapped what's gone on with Arizona basketball. We tried to save the All-Star game. We looked ahead to the game against BYU. Here's the final point, and then we'll wrap it up and see you Friday. Hazi, we were talking about the teams that we think have legitimate chances to win, the teams that were on the outside. Now, Ethan, you've already heard the majority of it. I'll just recap. Basically, I'm not going to go into exactly how we broke it up, but the teams that we were really buying in the East were Detroit and New York,
Well, I think there's one more that goes into that conversation.
And neither one of us cared about Cleveland. I know that's what you're going to say.
Well,
so
yeah.
Here's what I said about Cleveland. Hazi loved my analogy. He said, David, I'm paraphrasing, he didn't say this. He said, that's the smartest thing I've ever heard in my life after I said it, I'm pretty sure. Something like that.
Okay, let me hear it.
Here's what I said. So you've got Donovan Mitchell, who his entire career.
One of the better.
His entire career, the story has been, he remembers it. The story has been, he's a very good player, especially in the regular season. Come playoff time, a little bit invisible, right? Doesn't quite rise to the moment, and his teams have not performed in the playoffs. That's the narrative that's out there, okay? So, who do they go out and get? James Harden, who has the exact same narrative, to which I said, Ethan, I said the Cleveland Cavaliers are essentially trying to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and right now you take a bite in, it's got a little bit too much peanut butter, not enough jelly, so they went to Costco and they bought a 12-pack of extra large peanut butter. I mean, what are you thinking? Like, you need jelly on this sandwich, sir. Why did you buy more peanut butter? That's what I said about Cleveland.
Here's my thing about the Cavs. I just think James Harden fits the way they want to play so well because they want to have shooters sit on the outside and they want to have people, play off of Harden. Donovan Mitchell's going to play off of Harden, Jalen Tyson off of Harden, Mobley and Allen off of Harden.
I'm afraid they're going to compromise their defense, though, Ethan.
Well, Donovan Mitchell's one of the best defending guards in the NBA.
But in the NBA, all it takes is really, and the Knicks have showcased this, when they have Towns and Brunson out at the same time, right, the defense really strong. You only need one or two guys that can't defend. James Harden, that's one right there, right off the bat.
So can Donovan Mitchell defend?
Yes.
Can Tyson defend?
Yes.
Can Mobley defend? All D-point first team.
Look, they're all right. Say what you will. Exactly.
Where's Allen?
If they were such a great defensive team last year, then how come the Pacers were lighting them up in the playoffs? I mean, they were scoring
Pacers
at will.
just decided to be better than everybody. That's the only thing I have
the Cavaliers'
to say.
defense generally has not been strong enough in the playoffs as it was. And you go out and get James Harden, right? And they did move over a player that defensively was not an issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, you can go through it player by player. The bottom line is, before they had Harden defensively, they were held back last year against Indiana. And now you've got James Harden.
For sure. I just think James Harden opens up that offense way more.
Right.
And I think they're going to be able to do.
And what I'm saying was it their offense that was the issue in the playoffs last year? It really wasn't.
Not entirely, but I feel like James Harden gives them a player that you can go to when you need somebody to go score.
But again, I'm not trusting James Harden the way I would trust some of these other guys in an elimination game.
Right.
I'm sorry. And you can go back to 2018 and say, well, he played great in 2018 before Game 7. Great. You know what he did in Game 7?
Shrunk.
Absolutely nothing.
Shrunk.
2021. He was playing a great series against Boston. Where was he in Game 6 and 7?
MIA.
I'll tell you where he was. A combined 21 points in 2 games.
Yeah.
That's where he
And that's off a great volume of shots, by the way. A major volume of shots.
Yeah, he's definitely struggled in the playoffs. I'm firsthand.
What about Donovan Mitchell? Does he struggle in the playoffs? Majorly.
A little bit.
A little bit.
I just think that the combination of those two is better than any combination of guards that James Harden's had in his career.
I think Hazi and I
22 Donovan Mitchell.
Hazi and I are Knicks fans, and we saw that move made, and we both, we weren't together. I think when we read that notification, we both were like, okay, cross them off the list.
Okay, so
cross them off the list right now.
Let's continue. Enough about the Cavs.
So in the East, the only two teams we were given a chance was Detroit, New York, and
West.
If
Tatum comes back,
which we
Celtics.
worked through that, and we both don't think that that's a likely scenario.
Okay.
We're running out of time. The two teams in the West that we were really impressed by were Oklahoma City and San Antonio.
Yes.
And then our second-tier teams that could possibly challenge them, Denver, Houston, and Minnesota. That's it.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you in any of those. I just think Cleveland's better than you guys are making them out to be. It's really just an Eastern Conference
when they get
here.
tripped up in the first round against
I hope I'm wrong because I want you to go to the finals.
Here's the other
because
thing.
you haven't been since
probably the way it's going to shake out is Cleveland's going to play Detroit in the second round, and I'd be stunned if the Pistons don't beat them in 5.
In 5?
Yeah, in 5.
And here's my thing about Donovan Mitchell. Since everybody was bringing up James Harden, right?
Yeah.
Fine. Take away James Harden. Let's bring up Donovan Mitchell. Let's go back to even before he got to Cleveland when he was in Utah.
Yeah.
2020, the bubble. You were up 3-1 against Denver, and before Jokic was truly Jokic and Jamal Murray was Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray dropped 40 on you twice.
Yeah.
In 6 and 7, right? Then you get to 2022. where you're up to or you're tied 2-2 against the Clippers. You're coming off momentum. You score 10 in back-to-back games to send you home in a series that you should have won. So that's my thing with Cleveland.
Okay, so I have a question for you, Dave, and I'll let you get the last word here. You have 2 teams out of the East and 2 teams out of the West in your A tier, and I think you know where I'm going with this. What's your post-All-Star break, before any games start back up, prediction for the finals? And we'll end on that.
I think it's going to be probably New York against the Thunder, and I think the Spurs are right there. I think they're
the Spurs have no playoff experience. 0.
Okay, great. That's
0.
fantastic.
And in the regular season, you play to your strengths.
They also won 4-5 against the Thunder.
I understand.
Okay.
In the regular season, you play to your strengths. There's too many games. You kind of
I
just
also said the Thunder were going to win.
We're going to play our. I know,
Okay.
but I'm telling you.
And I think San Antonio is much better than Houston, if that's what you're getting.
No,
I'm
I'm
not
not
a Denver buyer.
I agree. I agree. And you're not a Denver buyer at all. I'm just saying, there's 82 games in the regular season. We're gonna play to our strengths and see how many games we can win.
Yep.
But then in a condensed series, in a 7-game series, you're playing against you're playing to their weaknesses rather than to your strengths. So you're
who's in your final? And then we're gone.
Probably the Thunder as well. I would agree with you.
Against who?
I really like the Cleveland team.
So you've got the Thunder against Cleveland.
I'm not
Hazi,
gonna
why
lie
don't
to
you
you.
round it out since you're here with us? And
I'm not gonna lie to you. I really like Cleveland.
I do agree with the San Antonio loss of experience. So for that, I'm going with the OKC Thunder. However, with that point, I am also going to go with the New York Knicks.
All right, so we're lockstep there. So we've got an orange and blue final with the Thunder and the Knicks. Ethan's only breaking with Cleveland, which we would both be surprised if they beat Detroit. So we'll leave it there. Final thought. The Rundown will be back 10 a.m. on Friday. We thank you so much for listening on Camp Student Radio, campstudentradio.com, and 1570 a.m.